The Manhattan skyline glittered like scattered diamonds against the velvet night sky, its reflection dancing on the polished marble floors of the Augustin, New York's most prestigious hotel. Olivia Bennett's fingers traced the smooth surface of the presidential suite's doorframe as she stepped inside, her body heavy with exhaustion from working a double shift. At 28, she carried the weight of responsibility far beyond her years. Each day a careful dance of maintaining the perfect facade expected of the Augustin's head housekeeper, while juggling the realities of being her younger brother's sole provider. Just one more suite, she whispered to herself, suppressing a yawn. The clock on her phone showed 11:47 p.m., well past her usual hours, but the last-minute VIP booking had demanded special attention. Mr. Blackwood's suite needed to be immaculate, even though his arrival wasn't expected until tomorrow morning. The presidential suite stretched before her like a luxury apartment, all chrome and glass and elegance. Olivia moved through her final inspection with practiced efficiency, her trained eye catching every detail. The Egyptian cotton sheets were perfectly pressed, the temperature set to exactly 72 degrees, and fresh orchids graced the custom marble dining table. Everything had to be perfect for Adrian Blackwood, the ruthless CEO whose reputation preceded him like a winter storm. Fatigue tugged at her consciousness as she completed her checklist. The plush armchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows beckoned to her, and Olivia allowed herself to sink into its embrace just for a moment. The city lights blurred before her eyes, a kaleidoscope of color and shadow. She would rest for just 5 minutes, she told herself, then make her final rounds and head home to her tiny apartment in Queens where bills and worries awaited. Just 5 minutes? The soft click of the electronic lock barely registered in her consciousness as sleep claimed her completely. Adrian Blackwood stood in the doorway of his suite, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the imported Italian marble. His early arrival was typical of his precise nature. He preferred to be wherever he needed to be hours ahead of schedule, controlling every variable possible. But nothing in his meticulously planned life had prepared him for the sight before him. A woman was asleep in his suite. His first instinct was to call security, to have her removed immediately. The Augustin's reputation for discretion and excellence was precisely why he always stayed here during his New York visits. This breach of protocol was unprecedented, but something stopped him. Perhaps it was the way the city lights painted, soft shadows across her face, or how her hands were folded primly in her lap even in sleep. Her hotel uniform was pristine despite the late hour, her name tag catching the light. Olivia Bennett, head housekeeper. Adrian moved closer, his Italian leather shoes silent on the plush carpet. She looked exhausted, he realized, noting the dark circles under her eyes that even sleep couldn't erase. Her features were striking not for their perfection but for their authenticity. The slight furrow of her brow, the way her dark hair had escaped its neat bun to frame her face, the gentle parting of her lips as she breathed deeply in slumber. "Beautiful," he whispered, surprising himself with the unbidden thought. Adrian Blackwood didn't do beautiful. He did efficient, profitable, controlled. Beautiful was dangerous. Beautiful was unpredictable. Beautiful was... Olivia stirred slightly, and Adrian found himself holding his breath. A strand of hair fell across her face, and his fingers itched with the inexplicable urge to brush it away. Instead, he remained perfectly still, watching as she settled deeper into the chair, her expression peaceful in a way that made his chest tight with an unfamiliar emotion. He should wake her. It was the logical thing to do. The proper thing to do. Instead, Adrian found himself walking to the bedroom, retrieving the cashmere throw from the foot of the king-sized bed. With movements more gentle than he knew he possessed, he draped the blanket over her sleeping form. The great Adrian Blackwood, known for his cutthroat business tactics and ice-cold demeanor, stood guard over a sleeping housekeeper, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest beneath the soft blanket. The city continued its endless dance of lights and shadows beyond the windows, but inside the suite, time seemed to stand still. For the first time in his 36 years, Adrian Blackwood felt something crack in the carefully constructed walls, around his heart. It wasn't a dramatic shattering. just a hairline fracture barely visible. But like the first drop of water through a dam, it held the potential for devastating change. He couldn't know then how this moment would alter the course of both their lives. Couldn't know that this woman, sleeping so trustingly in his presence, would challenge everything he thought he knew about power, control, and the true meaning of strength. For now, he simply watched, allowing himself this one moment of unguarded humanity before the sun rose and reality resumed its relentless pace. Tomorrow would come soon enough, bringing with it complications and consequences. But for now, in the quiet hours of this unexpected night, Adrian Blackwood did something completely out of character. He let something beautiful exist without trying to control it. The night deepened around them, keeper of secrets and silent witness to the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. Outside, New York continued its endless symphony of life, unaware that in a luxury suite high above its streets, destiny was weaving together two lives in its intricate dance. And Olivia slept on, unaware that her world was about to change forever. The first rays of dawn crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Augustine's presidential suite, painting golden streaks across Olivia Bennett's face. Her eyes fluttered open, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar softness surrounding her. Then reality crashed in like a tidal wave. She bolted upright, the cashmere throw falling to her lap, a throw she definitely hadn't brought with her. Her heart hammered against her ribs as her eyes darted around the suite, landing on a half-empty cup of coffee on the marble dining table. Someone had been here. Someone had seen her. "Oh God," she whispered, her fingers trembling as she checked her phone. 6:15 a.m. Dozens of missed calls from her brother Nathan lit up the screen. She'd never made it home last night. The sound of running water from the suite's master bathroom froze her in place. Mr. Blackwood was here, had been here, while she slept. Olivia's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Being fired. Being blacklisted from every hotel in New York. Having to move back to Ohio, tail between her legs. Dreams of making it in the big city shattered like so much broken glass. The water stopped. She had seconds to decide. Face him and try to explain, or flee and hope somehow this would all go away. Before she could move, the bathroom door opened. Adrian Blackwood stood in the doorway, already impeccably dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. His dark hair was still damp from the shower, and his steel-gray eyes found hers immediately. "Good morning, Miss Bennett," he said, his voice carrying that precise British accent that made everything sound like a board meeting. "I trust you slept well?" Olivia shot to her feet, the throw tumbling to the floor. "Mr. Blackwood, I am so incredibly sorry. I was doing the final inspection last night and I never—" Her words tangled together, cheeks burning with mortification. He held up a hand, silencing her. "Coffee?" What? Would you like coffee?" He moved to the Nespresso machine with practiced ease. "I've already had 2 cups, but I find most people need at least 1 to face difficult conversations." Difficult conversations. The words sent a chill down her spine. "Mr. Blackwood, please, I know this is completely unprofessional. I've never done anything like this before. I understand if you want to report this to management, but 3 sugars, if I remember correctly." Olivia blinked. "How did you—" "I've observed you in the staff lounge," he said, pressing buttons on the machine. "You always add 3 sugars to your coffee. A rather alarming amount, if you ask me." The casual observation stunned her into silence. Adrian Blackwood, the man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency made seasoned CEOs nervous, had noticed how she took her coffee. He handed her a steaming cup, and their fingers brushed. The contact sent an electric current through her body, and from the slight widening of his eyes, she knew he felt it too. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the dining table. It wasn't a request. Olivia sank into one of the custom leather chairs, gripping the coffee cup like a lifeline. Adrian took the seat across from her, his presence filling the room like a gathering. "Storm, you have a brother," he stated, surprising her again. "Nathan, 22. Pre-med student at Columbia on scholarship but struggling with living expenses. You've been his legal guardian since your parents' accident 8 years ago. How do you—" Fear crept into her voice. "Have you been investigating?" "Me?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I make it my business to know everything about the people in my immediate vicinity, especially those who fall asleep in my suite." The attempt at humor did nothing to calm her racing heart. "Mr. Blackwood." "Adrian, Mr. Blackwood," she insisted, clinging to formality like armor. "I understand this is grounds for immediate termination, but this job, I need this job. Nathan's scholarship doesn't cover everything, and the medical bills from my parents' accident are paid." The words hung in the air between them. Olivia's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. "What?" Adrian's expression remained unreadable. "Your outstanding medical bills. They've been settled. You'll find the collection agencies have been notified." The room seemed to tilt on its axis. "You can't. That's not. Why would you do that?" "Consider it compensation." "Compensation?" Her voice cracked. "For what?" "For providing me with something I haven't experienced in a very long time." His eyes held hers, intense and unblinking. A genuine surprise. Olivia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. "I don't need your charity, Mr. Blackwood. I've managed just fine on my own." "Yes," he said softly. "I can see that by the way you collapsed from exhaustion in my suite." Anger flared, hot and unexpected. "You don't know anything about me." "On the contrary." He stood as well, his height forcing her to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I know you work 60 hours a week. I know you haven't taken a day off in 8 months. I know you send half your paycheck to cover your brother's rent and student housing. I know you skip meals to make ends meet." His voice softened. "I know you're drowning, Olivia." The use of her first name hit her like a physical blow. "Why do you care?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. For a moment, the polished facade cracked, revealing something raw and uncertain underneath. "I wish I knew." They stood there, frozen in a moment that crackled with unspoken possibilities. Olivia could feel her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. This man, this stranger who had somehow invaded every aspect of her life in the span of a few hours, was offering her a lifeline, and that terrified her more than drowning ever had. "I have to go," she whispered. "Nathan will be worried." Adrian nodded once, sharp and businesslike, his mask firmly back in place. "Of course, take the day off with pay." "That's not necessary, Ms. Bennett." His tone brooked no argument. "Take the day, rest, and tomorrow." He paused, and for a moment, she could have sworn she saw uncertainty flicker across his face. "Tomorrow, perhaps we could discuss your future over dinner." "Dinner?" The word came out as barely more than a breath. "Yes." He straightened his already perfect tie. "Unless you make a habit of falling asleep in the suites of other CEOs. The hint of jealousy in his tone was so unexpected that a laugh bubbled up before she could stop it. "No, Mr. Blackwood, you're the first." "Adrian," he corrected again, and this time his smile reached his eyes. "And I sincerely hope I'm the last." Olivia fled the suite before she could say something dangerous, like how his smile transformed his entire face, or how her heart had started racing the moment he'd said her name. The door clicked shut behind her with a sound of finality. Inside the suite, Adrian Blackwood stood motionless, staring at the chair where she had slept. The scent of her shampoo lingered in the air, a subtle reminder that he hadn't dreamed the whole encounter. "What are you doing?" he muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair in a rare gesture of uncertainty. He had an empire to run, deals to close, a board meeting in 3 hours. He didn't have time for whatever this was. But as he gathered his briefcase and prepared to face another day of hostile takeovers and million-dollar decisions, Adrian Blackwood couldn't shake the image of Olivia Bennett's smile, or the way it had made him feel more alive than any business victory ever had. The game had changed. He just wasn't sure if he was still playing to win or playing not to lose. Olivia stood in front of her modest closet, staring at the handful of dresses she owned as if they might offer answers to the questions swirling in her mind. The invitation to dinner with Adrian Blackwood hung over her like a storm cloud, equal parts thrilling and terrifying. "You're seriously going?" Nathan leaned against her bedroom door frame, his lanky frame casting a shadow across the worn carpet of their Queens apartment. "Liv, the guy basically stalked you." "He didn't stalk me." She pulled out a navy blue dress, then immediately put it back. "He just did his research." "Right. Because that's so much better." Nathan ran a hand through his disheveled brown hair, a gesture so reminiscent of their father, it made her heart ache. "And the medical bills? That's not weird at all." Olivia's fingers traced the edge of a simple black dress. "I'm paying him back every cent." "With what money?" The question wasn't cruel, just practical. Nathan knew their finances as well as she did. Besides, guys like him don't do anything without expecting something in return. The truth in his words stung. Olivia had spent the entire day wrestling with the same thoughts. Adrian Blackwood didn't become a business titan by being charitable. Everything was a transaction to men like him. Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Car arriving in 30 minutes AB. "I have to know why," she said finally, pulling out the black dress. "Why he paid the bills, why he's interested, all of it." Nathan's expression softened. "Just be careful, okay? We've made it this far on our own. We don't need some rich guy's charity." But as Olivia slipped into the dress, the only designer piece she owned, bought secondhand for interviews, she wondered if that was true. The weight of their struggles pressed down on her. Nathan's upcoming textbook expenses, the rising rent, the constant fear of one medical emergency destroying everything they'd built. The car that arrived was a sleek black Bentley, drawing curious stares from their neighbors. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, introduced himself as Russell and held the door for her with practiced elegance. "The restaurant, Ms. Bennett?" I don't know where we're going." Russell smiled knowingly. "Mr. Blackwood has taken care of the arrangements." Of course he had. Adrian Blackwood probably hadn't left anything to chance since kindergarten. The car glided through Manhattan, traffic like a shark through water, eventually pulling up to Le Bernardin. Olivia's heart sank. Even the water probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Adrian waited outside, his commanding presence drawing subtle glances from passers-by. He'd changed from his morning suit into something even more devastating, a perfectly tailored navy ensemble that made him look like he'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. "You look beautiful," he said as she approached, his eyes taking in every detail of her appearance. The intensity of his gaze made her shiver, despite the warm evening air. "This place is too expensive," she blurted out instead of a greeting. A hint of amusement touched his lips. "Good evening to you too, Olivia." "I mean it, I can't. This isn't. Would you prefer a hot dog from a street vendor?" His tone was serious, but his eyes held a glimmer of something that might have been playfulness. "Yes, actually." The words came out before she could stop them. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then turned to the maitre d', who had materialized at his elbow. "Our apologies, Thomas. We'll have to reschedule." Before Olivia could process what was happening, Adrian's hand was at the small of her back, guiding her away from the restaurant. His touch sent electricity coursing through her body, even through the fabric of her dress. "What are you doing?" "Getting a hot dog." He steered them toward Central Park. "Unless you've changed your mind." "But your reservation?" "We'll be there another time." They reached a hot dog cart and Adrian stepped up with the confidence of a man making a multi-million-dollar deal. 2 dogs, everything on them. The vendor's eyes widened at the sight of Adrian's suit, but he got to work without comment. Olivia watched in fascination as Adrian Blackwood, terror of Wall Street, paid for street food with a $100 bill and told the vendor to keep the change. They found a bench overlooking the pond, the setting sun painting the water in shades of gold and pink. Adrian removed his jacket, draping it over the back of the bench with careful precision before loosening his tie. "Better?" he asked, handing her a hot dog wrapped in foil. Olivia took a bite to avoid answering immediately. The simple act of eating street food in evening wear should have felt ridiculous, but somehow it didn't. "Why are you doing this?" "Eating dinner? I find it's necessary for survival." "You know what I mean." She turned to face him fully. "The bills, the dinner invitation, all of it. What do you want from me?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment, watching a family of ducks glide across the pond's surface. "Do you know what my first thought was when I saw you sleeping in my suite?" The question caught her off guard. "That you should call security? That you looked peaceful." His voice had dropped lower, intimate. "I haven't felt peace like that in... I can't remember how long. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't calculating your next move, you were just being. Most people would call that trespassing." A genuine laugh escaped him, the sound rich and surprising. "Yes, well, I've never been accused of being most people." He turned to look at her, all traces of humor gone. "You terrify me, Olivia Bennett." She almost choked on her hot dog. "I what?" "You terrify me because you make me want things I've spent my entire life avoiding. Spontaneity. Authenticity. Connection." Each word seemed to cost him something. "I look at you, and I see someone who has every reason to be bitter, to be hardened by life's cruelties, and yet you still smile at everyone you meet. You still leave chocolate mints on the pillows even though it's not in the hotel's budget. You still believe in something more than just survival." Olivia's heart thundered in her chest. "You've been watching me." "Yes." No apology, no explanation, just truth. "That should creep me out." "But it doesn't?" She shook her head slowly. "It should. Just like I should be afraid of you, of your power, of what you could do to my life with one phone call. But instead..." "Instead?" His voice was barely a whisper now. "Instead, I'm afraid of how much I want to know you. The real you, not the CEO in the newspapers or the man who terrorizes boardrooms." She took a shaky breath. "And that's so much more dangerous." Adrian's hand found hers on the bench between them, his fingers intertwining with hers as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. The simple contact felt more intimate than any kiss. "I paid your bills because I couldn't bear watching." "You destroy yourself trying to stay afloat," he admitted. "Not because I want to own you or control you, though I'll admit control is something of a habit for me." "I'm paying you back," she insisted, even as her fingers tightened around his. "I know." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "Your pride rivals mine, which is saying something." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness settled over the park, their empty hot dog wrappers forgotten. The city hummed around them, a constant reminder of the world they'd have to return to eventually. "This can't work," Olivia said finally, voicing the fear that had been growing since that morning. "Our worlds are too different." "Probably not," Adrian agreed, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "But I find myself increasingly uninterested in probability." She turned to look at him, really look at him, and found his walls down for the first time. The vulnerability in his eyes made him look younger, more human, more dangerous. "What happens tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow I have a board meeting at 9, and you have the breakfast shift at 7. His precise knowledge of her schedule should have bothered her, but it didn't. "And perhaps if you're amenable, we could have dinner again, somewhere that makes you comfortable." "People will talk." "People always talk. It's one of their less endearing habits." A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside her, genuine and unguarded. Adrian watched her with an expression of wonder, as if he'd just witnessed something rare and precious. "One dinner at a time?" she offered. "One dinner at a time," he agreed, bringing their joined hands to his lips and pressing a kiss to her, knuckles that felt like a promise and a warning all at once. As they walked back to the waiting car, Olivia knew she was stepping into dangerous waters. But for the first time in years, danger felt a lot like hope. The whispers started 3 weeks after their first dinner in Central Park. At first, they were just ripples in the Augustine's carefully maintained atmosphere. Sidelong glances from other housekeepers, conversations that stopped when Olivia entered the break room, subtle changes in the way some guests looked at her during her rounds. "Did you hear?" The words followed her like shadows through the service corridors. "Blackwood hasn't checked out in 3 weeks, longest he's ever stayed." Olivia kept her head high and her expression neutral, just as Adrian had advised. "Let them talk," he'd said over their 4th dinner, this time at a tiny Italian restaurant in Brooklyn that made her feel safe enough to laugh freely. People fear what they don't understand. But understanding was becoming increasingly complicated, even for her. Adrian's presence in the hotel had shifted from something extraordinary to an almost daily constant. He found reasons to extend his stay, invented business meetings that required his presence in New York, crafted elaborate explanations for why the presidential suite needed to remain his for another week. And every day, he found ways to see her. Sometimes it was just a brief moment in a corridor, his fingers brushing against hers as they passed. Other times it was lunch ordered to his suite, where they talked about everything and nothing. Her brother's struggles with organic chemistry, his latest corporate acquisition, the book she was reading between shifts. Today, though, something was different. Olivia felt it the moment she stepped into the hotel's marble lobby. Regina Chen, the hotel manager, stood by the front desk with an expression that made Olivia's stomach twist. "Ms. Bennett, my office, please." The walk to Regina's office felt like a march to execution. Olivia's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Had someone seen them together? Had Adrian's board found out? Had she somehow compromised the hotel's reputation? Regina closed the door behind them with a soft click that seemed to echo in the silence. "Sit down, Olivia." She sank into one of the leather chairs, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to hide their trembling. "The New York Post called this morning." Regina's voice was carefully neutral. "They're running a story about Adrian Blackwood's extended stay at the Augustine. Apparently someone leaked information about his particular interest in certain staff members." Olivia's throat went dry. "Ms. Chen, I don't need explanations." Regina held up a hand. "What you do in your personal time is your business, but this hotel's reputation is mine." She slid a tabloid across the desk. "They're running this tomorrow." The headline made Olivia's blood run cold. "Blackwood's Secret Affair. CEO's Mystery Woman Revealed." The photo beneath it was grainy, but unmistakable. Adrian and Olivia in Central Park, their hands intertwined, his jacket draped over her shoulders against the evening chill. She looked happy in the picture, her head thrown back in laughter at something he'd said. He was looking at her with an expression that made her heart ache even now. "The board of directors is concerned," Regina continued. "Not about your relationship, though I'm sure they have opinions on that, but about the appearance of impropriety. A head housekeeper involved with a VIP guest." "Nothing inappropriate has happened," Olivia insisted, her voice stronger than she felt. "We've had dinner. We've talked. That's all." Regina's expression softened slightly. "Olivia, I've known you for 3 years. You're one of my best employees. But this is bigger than just dinner and talking. This is Adrian Blackwood. His world operates under different rules." As if summoned by his name, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Emergency board meeting called. Need to see you before. Come to the suite?" "I understand if you need to let me go," Olivia said quietly, her fingers clenched around her phone. "Let you go?" Regina looked genuinely surprised. "No, Olivia. I need you to be careful. The vultures are circling, and they're not just after Blackwood. They'll tear apart every detail of your life, your brother's life, your parents' accident, anything they can use to sell papers. The mention of Nathan made Olivia's protective instincts flare. What do I do? That depends. Regina leaned back in her chair. What is he to you? Really? The question hit harder than any headline. What was Adrian Blackwood to her? The man who paid her family's medical bills without being asked? The CEO who ate hot dogs in $1,000 suits just to make her comfortable? The lonely soul who looked at her like she held answers to questions he'd never dared to ask? Olivia struggled to find words that wouldn't sound naive or foolish. He's someone I'm not ready to lose. Regina nodded slowly. Then my advice is simple. Decide if he's worth the storm that's coming. Because it is coming, Olivia. And it's going to hit hard. The elevator ride to the presidential suite felt longer than usual. Olivia's mind raced with Regina's warnings, with the tabloid headline, with all the implications she'd been trying to ignore for weeks. Adrian opened the door before she could knock, pulling her inside with an urgency that surprised her. His usually perfect appearance was slightly disheveled, tie loosened, hair mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it. They're trying to force me out, he said without preamble, pacing the length of the suite. The board, they're using us, as leverage, claiming my personal indiscretions show poor judgment, that I'm no longer fit to lead the company. Olivia's heart sank. Because of me. No. He stopped pacing, turning to face her with fierce intensity. Because they've been looking for an excuse for months. I've been blocking their attempts to strip the company for parts, to lay off thousands of workers for short-term profit. They see this as an opportunity, nothing more. But I am the opportunity they're using. She held up her phone, showing him the text from Regina about the article. This is going to hurt you. Adrian's expression softened as he read the message. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, taking her face in his hands with a gentleness that made her want to cry. Listen to me very carefully, Olivia Bennett, he said, his voice low and intense. I have spent my entire life building walls, calculating risks, controlling every variable. And then you fell asleep in my suite and woke something in me I thought had died years ago. Adrian, no, let me finish. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones softly. They can take the company. They can take my reputation. They can write whatever stories they want. But I will not let them take this. Take you. From me. Not unless. He stepped back slightly, dropping his hands to his sides. Not unless that's what you want. Olivia stared at him, this powerful man suddenly looking so uncertain, and felt something settle in her chest. A certainty she hadn't expected to find. Regina asked me what you are to me, she said quietly. Do you want to know what I realized? He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. You're the first person since my parents died who's made me feel like I don't have to be strong all the time. Her voice cracked slightly. And that terrifies me more than any newspaper headline. Adrian pulled her into his arms and she went willingly, pressing her face against his chest where she could hear his heart racing. They stood like that for a long moment, letting the city noise fade away outside the windows. We could end this, he murmured into her hair. Before the story breaks, I could release a statement, deny everything, protect your privacy. Olivia pulled back just enough to look up at him. Is that what you want? What I want stopped mattering the moment I saw you sleeping in that chair. His smile was sad and wonderful all at once. What I want is to take you to dinner again tonight, headlines be damned. What I want is to hear you laugh at my attempts to eat street food without making a mess. What I want is... What? Everything, he admitted. With you, I want everything. Olivia rose on her tiptoes and pressed a soft kiss to the corner of his mouth. Their first kiss, gentle, barely there, but full of promise. Then let them talk. Adrian's phone buzzed insistently, a reminder of the board meeting waiting downstairs. Reality intruding on their moment of defiance. Whatever happens in that meeting, he said, straightening his tie, remember that you are not something they can use against me. You are the best decision I've ever made. As Olivia watched him leave to face his board, she sent up a silent prayer, not for protection from the coming storm, but for the strength to weather it together. The Augustine's presidential suite had never felt so silent. Olivia sat perched on the edge of the custom leather sofa, watching the sun sink behind Manhattan's skyline, while her phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. The New York Post article had dropped online an hour ago, and already her social media had exploded with friend requests and messages from journalists. The headline was worse than the preview. Rags to romance, hotel maid seduces billionaire CEO. The story painted her as a calculated social climber, digging up details about her parents' accident, Nathan's scholarship, and even her high school job at a diner in Ohio. But it wasn't the article that made her hands shake. It was Adrian's silence. The board meeting had stretched from hours into what felt like eternity. No messages, no updates, nothing but the growing knot of anxiety in her stomach and the relentless ping of her phone. A knock at the door made her jump. But instead of Adrian, she found Russell, his driver, looking grave. "Ms. Bennett." He handed her a thick manila envelope. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to deliver this personally. He wanted you to read it before the news breaks." Olivia's fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a press release, the Blackwood Industries letterhead stark against the white paper. Breaking: Adrian Blackwood steps down as CEO of Blackwood Industries. The words blurred before her eyes. She barely registered Russell's quiet exit. As she read further, following an emergency board meeting, Adrian Blackwood has voluntarily resigned as CEO of Blackwood Industries, effective immediately. This decision comes amid concerns about recent personal matters that the board felt could impact shareholder confidence. "No," she whispered, the paper crumpling in her grip. "No, no, no." The suite door opened again, and this time it was Adrian who entered. He looked exhausted, his tie gone, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms marked with tension. When he saw her holding the press release, something like relief flickered across his face. "I wanted you to hear it. From me first," he said quietly. "You can't do this." Olivia stood, the paper falling forgotten to the floor. "Adrian, this is your company, your life's work." Was. He crossed to the bar and poured 2 fingers of scotch. The vote was unanimous. Step down voluntarily or face a public removal. At least this way I controlled the narrative. "Because of me." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "They're using me to force you out." Adrian turned to her, and the raw emotion in his eyes took her breath away. "They're using my feelings for you. There's a difference." "What difference does it make?" She gestured at the press release. "You've lost everything." "Have I?" He set down his untouched scotch and moved toward her with predatory grace. "Tell me something, Olivia. Did you read the whole release?" She shook her head, confused by his sudden intensity. "The last paragraph announces my new venture, a separate company I've been building quietly for months, one that owns controlling interest in 3 major hotel chains, including the Augustine." Understanding dawned slowly. "You knew this was coming." "I knew they'd try eventually." His lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. "I just didn't expect you to be the catalyst. You made me sloppy, Olivia Bennett. Made me care about something more than winning. Is that what this is to you? Another game to win?" "No." He caught her hand, pressing it against his chest where she could feel his heart racing. "This is the only real thing in my life, which is why I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say." Olivia tried to pull away, but he held firm. "The press release drops in an hour," he continued. "When it does, every journalist in New York will be looking for you. They'll dig into your past, harass your brother, turn your life into tabloid fodder. Unless what? Unless you let me protect you." His other hand came up to cup her cheek. "I have a house in the Hamptons. Private, secure, away from all this. You and Nathan both could hide." She jerked away from his touch. "That's your solution? Pack me away like some dirty secret? Like someone I care about?" His voice rose for the first time. Do you have any idea what they'll do to you? The stories they'll spin? The way they'll twist everything pure and beautiful about you into something tawdry? I don't care. The words exploded from her with unexpected force. I don't care what they say about me, but I won't let you throw away everything you've built just to protect me. I'm not throwing anything away. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I'm choosing something more important. More important than the thousands of people who work for you? The ones you said you were protecting from the board? That hit home. She saw it in the way he flinched, the way his shoulders tensed. I have a plan for that too, he said quietly. The new company, the hotel chains. It's not just about profit. It's about creating something different, something better. But I need time to put all the pieces in place, and I need you safe while I do it. Olivia moved to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. Below, she could see reporters already gathering at the hotel entrance, hungry for a story. When my parents died, she said softly, everyone told me to send Nathan to foster care, that I was too young, too unprepared to raise him, that it would be safer, easier. She turned back to Adrian. But sometimes the safe choice is the wrong choice. This is different. Is it? She stepped closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes. You taught me not to run from who I am, not to let other people's expectations define me. Was that all just words? Adrian's expression cracked, revealing the vulnerability beneath his controlled exterior. I can't bear the thought of them hurting you. Then don't let them. Olivia took his face in her hands, the role of protector suddenly reversed. Show them that what we have isn't something shameful to hide. Show them the man I know, the one who eats hot dogs in designer suits and leaves cashmere blankets on sleeping strangers. A laugh escaped him, rough and genuine. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. She brushed her thumbs across his cheekbones. I love you. The words hung in the air between them, unexpected but undeniable. Adrian's breath caught, his hands coming up to cover hers. Say that again, he whispered. I love you. Stronger this time, certain, and I won't hide that like it's something wrong. Adrian pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff all at once. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, he breathed. God help me. I love you more than any empire. Then let's build a new one. She smiled against his lips. Together. In the open. His phone buzzed. The press release would go live in 10 minutes. Outside, the reporters waited like vultures. But in that moment, holding each other in the gathering darkness of the suite, they were stronger than any headline. Together, Adrian agreed, and it sounded like a vow. No more hiding. As if in answer, Olivia's phone lit up with a text. From Nathan. Just saw the article, you okay? Need me to punch a reporter? She showed it to Adrian, who laughed. I like your brother more every day. He's family, Olivia said simply. Then, watching Adrian's face carefully, and so are you now, if you want to be. The smile that broke across his face was answer enough. Whatever storm was coming, they would weather it standing side by side in the light. The crowd outside the Augustine had grown into a frenzy of flashing cameras and shouted questions. Adrian's security team formed a tight barrier around Olivia as she made her way to the waiting car, but she could still hear fragments of their calls. Ms. Bennett, is it true you're pregnant with Blackwood's child? Did you target other wealthy guests before him? What does your brother think about your relationship with... The car door slammed shut, muffling the chaos. Adrian's hand found hers immediately, squeezing tight enough to anchor them both. Russell, he called to the driver, take us to Queens. Olivia turned to him in surprise. Queens? But your interview with the Wall Street Journal. Can wait. His jaw was set in that way she was learning meant his mind was made up. Your brother's been dealing with reporters at Columbia all day. He shouldn't be alone tonight. The simple thoughtfulness of it, putting Nathan first, understanding what mattered to her, made Olivia's throat tight with emotion. She leaned into Adrian's side, drawing strength from his solid presence. "The board's already spinning the story," he said quietly, showing her his tablet. The headlines scrolled past like accusations. Blackwood Industries stock drops, 15% following CEO departure. Sources claim months-long affair led to corporate shakeup. Former Blackwood CEO seen house hunting in Hamptons with mystery woman. "They're painting me as some sort of corporate Casanova." Adrian's voice held an edge of dark humor. "Apparently I've been secretly dating half the hotel staff across the eastern seaboard. And I'm the crown jewel of your harem." Olivia tried to match his light tone, but it fell flat. "You're the reason I finally understood what actually matters." He set the tablet aside, turning to face her fully. "I spoke with Regina this morning. She's prepared to offer you a promotion, director of guest services for the entire hotel group." Olivia stiffened. "Because of you?" "Because you're the most qualified person for the job." His eyes held hers steadily. "You've practically been doing it already, just without the title or compensation. Regina's been planning to create the position for months." People will always say something." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "The question is, are you going to let their words stop you from growing?" The car slowed as they entered Queens, the familiar streets a stark contrast to Manhattan's glossy facades. Olivia watched a group of kids playing basketball in the fading light, their laughter carrying through the tinted windows. "I started as a maid in Ohio," she said softly, "cleaning motel rooms after school to help with bills. Everyone said that's all I'd ever be, that I should be grateful for steady work." She turned back to Adrian. "But I wanted more. Not money or status, just the chance to build something meaningful. And now I want to prove them wrong. All of them." Her voice strengthened with conviction. "I want to show that our story isn't about some billionaire saving the poor maid. It's about two people who see each other for who they really are." Adrian's smile was fierce with pride. "Then let's give them something worth talking about." They pulled up to her apartment building where Nathan was waiting outside. His face showed the strain of the day, but he managed a small wave when he saw them. "Your security guy's been keeping the reporters away," he said as they approached, "but my phone's been blowing up. Even my professors are asking questions." Adrian stepped forward, extending his hand. "I apologize for the intrusion into your life, Nathan. If there's anything I can do?" "Actually, there is." Nathan's grip was firm as he shook Adrian's hand. "You can come upstairs and help me convince my sister to stop reading the comments on these articles." The unexpected olive branch hung in the air for a moment before Adrian laughed. "Deal." The three of them made their way up to the small apartment where takeout containers and textbooks covered the kitchen table. It wasn't the presidential suite, but somehow Adrian looked more at ease here than he had in all his luxury. "Nice place," he said, and Olivia could tell he meant it. "It's home," she replied simply. Nathan cleared space at the table while Olivia made coffee, the cheap kind, not Adrian's imported beans. They settled into an unlikely family tableau. The billionaire CEO, the med student, and the housekeeper turned executive, sharing Chinese food and strategy. "The press will dig up everything," Adrian warned, picking at his lo mein. "Your parents' accident, the insurance battles, every job you've both ever had. Let them." Nathan's voice was steady. "We haven't done anything wrong. Neither has Liv." "No," Adrian agreed, looking at Olivia with such naked adoration it made her chest ache. "She's done everything right." "But they'll try to make it wrong," Olivia said quietly. "They'll twist it into something ugly. Then we tell our own story." Adrian pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails. "I have interviews lined up with several major outlets. Reputable ones, not tabloids. They want to know about the new company, the future of Blackwood Industries, the scandal that brought down a CEO." "And what will you tell them?" Nathan asked. "The truth." Adrian reached for Olivia's hand across the table. That I fell in love with a woman who reminded me what integrity looks like. That watching her fight for her family, for her dreams, made me want to be worthy of her. That every decision I've made since meeting her has been about building something better, not just bigger. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. Adrian, I mean it. His voice roughened with emotion. The board thought they could use our relationship to destroy me. Instead, it saved me. Saved me from becoming just another soulless corporate raider who measures success in stock points. Nathan studied them both for a long moment. You know this won't be easy, right? The press, the society people, your old business associates, they're not going to let this go. Nothing worth having comes easy, Olivia said, the words her mother used to say flowing naturally. But nothing worth having should be hidden, either. Adrian's phone buzzed with another news alert. Without looking at it, he turned it face down on the table. Tomorrow, he said, we'll face the interviews and the photographers and all of it. But tonight, he squeezed Olivia's hand. Tonight I'd like to hear more about this motel in Ohio where it all started. And so, in that small Queens apartment, while the media storm raged outside and their worlds shifted on their axes, they shared stories. Adrian listened with genuine interest as Olivia and Nathan talked about their parents, about struggling through college, about small victories and crushing setbacks. In turn, he opened up about his own past, the mother who left, the father, who never learned to show love except through achievement, the loneliness of success. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, as Nathan dozed on the couch and the city hummed below, Olivia realized something profound. They weren't just weathering a storm together. They were building a shelter, a family, something stronger than headlines or social expectations or corporate power plays. What are you thinking? Adrian murmured, noticing her contemplative expression. That sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. Worth it? Olivia looked around her humble apartment, at her sleeping brother, at this powerful man who chose love over empire, and smiled. Worth everything. The Wall Street Journal interview was going perfectly until they asked about Cassandra Blackwood. Adrian's hand, resting casually on the back of Olivia's chair in his temporary office at the Augustine, went rigid at the mention of his mother's name. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana Chen, noticed the reaction and pressed harder. Your mother's recent book claims she left because your father was emotionally abusive. She suggests this pattern of relationship difficulties might be hereditary. Olivia felt Adrian's fingers dig into the leather of her chair. They hadn't discussed his mother's book. She hadn't even known it existed until this moment. My mother, Adrian's voice was arctic, hasn't been part of my life for 28 years. She's hardly qualified to comment on my relationships or character. And yet, Chen persisted, she paints a very specific picture of the Blackwood. Men, ambitious, controlling, unable to separate love from power. Some might say your current situation, dating an employee, the corporate upheaval, the public scandal, validates her concerns. I think we're done here. Adrian stood abruptly, his carefully maintained composure cracking. Mr. Blackwood, the public has questions. The public, he cut in, can read my mother's fiction if they want salacious stories. This interview is about the future of my company and the innovative changes we're implementing in the hospitality industry. Chen gathered her materials, but her expression suggested the damage was done. Of course, thank you for your time. The door had barely closed behind her when Adrian's fist slammed into his desk. Damn her. Damn her and her self-serving lies. Adrian, Olivia approached him carefully. Talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. He wouldn't meet her eyes. My mother abandoned us when I was 8. Now she's trying to cash in on my name with some tell-all memoir. It's pathetic. Why didn't you tell me about the book? Because it doesn't matter. The words exploded from him. She doesn't matter. She lost the right to comment on my life when she walked out that door. Olivia stepped closer, reaching for his hand. He let her take it, but his fingers remained stiff and cold in her grasp. Adrian, look at me. He did, finally, and the pain in his eyes made her heart ache. She claims my father drove her away with his ambition, his need for control. That, the Blackwood blood is poison. We destroy everything we touch. That's not true, isn't it? He pulled away, pacing the office like a caged animal. Look at what's happened since you met me. Your privacy invaded, your career questioned, your family harassed. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am just like him. Stop. Olivia's voice cracked like a whip. You don't get to use your mother's words to push me away. Adrian froze mid-stride, surprise breaking through his anger. You're not your father, she continued, moving to stand in front of him. And you're not the villain in your mother's book. You're the man who left his empire to protect his employees, who eats takeout in Queens and helps my brother with his med school applications, who looks at me like I'm something precious instead of something to possess. Olivia, no, you need to hear this. She took his face in her hands, forcing him to maintain eye contact. I lost my parents too soon, but at least I never doubted they loved me. You lost your mother twice. Once when she left. And now again with these lies. You have every right to be angry, but you don't get to let her words destroy what we're building. Something broke in his expression. The board meeting tomorrow. They're using her book, claiming I'm emotionally unstable, that my judgment is compromised by our relationship. They're trying to force a complete sale of my remaining shares. Then we fight them. Olivia's voice was steel. Together. You don't understand. If they succeed, I lose everything. Not just the company, but the hotels, the Augustine, all of it. Everything I've built, everything I was planning to rebuild. You don't lose me. She pressed her forehead to his. You don't lose Nathan's respect. You don't lose the truth of who you are. Adrian's arms came around her then, pulling her, tight against his chest. She could feel his heart racing, his breath uneven. When she left, he whispered into her hair, I promised myself I'd never need anyone again. Never let anyone close enough to abandon me. How's that working out for you? A broken laugh escaped him. Terrible. I need you like breathing. Good. Olivia pulled back just enough to see his face. Because I need you too. The real you, not the CEO or the billionaire or the son trying to prove his mother wrong. Just you. Adrian's kiss was desperate, almost bruising, as if he was trying to pour all his fear and love and need into a single moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Help me fight them, he said quietly. Not for the money or the power, but for the chance to build something different. Something that matters. Always. She smoothed his rumpled shirt, straightened his tie. Small, intimate gestures that seemed to ground him. But first we need to talk about the book. He tensed again but didn't pull away. Not to rehash the past, she clarified, but to understand what we're facing. The board will use it tomorrow. We need to be prepared. Adrian nodded slowly. You're right, as usual. He managed a small smile. Dinner in the suite? I'll tell you everything. Actually, Olivia bit her lip. I think we need Nathan for this conversation too. Your brother? Why? Because he's family now. And family means no one fights alone. The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. Family. Such a simple concept, but one he'd forgotten how to trust. Okay, he said softly. Family dinner it is. As they left the office, Adrian's phone buzzed with a news alert. Another article about Cassandra Blackwood's book. Another round of speculation about the troubled Blackwood legacy. But for the first time since the story broke, Adrian didn't feel the weight of it crushing him. Instead, he felt Olivia's hand. In his, thought of Nathan waiting at home and realized something profound. Sometimes family isn't what you're born into, but what you choose to build. Tomorrow would bring its battles, but tonight was for truth, for healing, for the kind of love that his mother's book could never understand, the kind that made you stronger instead of destroying you. Ready? Olivia squeezed his hand. Adrian looked at her, this woman who had crashed into his life and rearranged all his careful plans, and felt the last of his mother's poison drain away. Ready? The boardroom of Blackwood Industries stretched out like a battlefield, all gleaming mahogany and hostile stares. Olivia sat beside Adrian, her spine straight as steel, watching the men and women who thought they could break him. Behind them, Nathan had insisted on attending, his presence a silent show of family solidarity. Richard Kessler, the lead board member, smiled like a shark scenting blood. The numbers don't lie, Adrian. Your personal situation has cost shareholders over $300 million in market value. The responsible thing would be to step aside completely. Responsible to whom? Adrian's voice was deadly calm. The workers you plan to lay off, the communities you'll devastate with your asset stripping? Responsible to reality. Kessler slid a document across the table. Your mother's book has become a New York Times bestseller. The public perception of Blackwood Industries is toxic, but we're prepared to be generous. Full market value for your remaining shares, plus a non-disclosure agreement to prevent any unfortunate revelations. Olivia felt Adrian's tension beside her, saw his fingers twitch toward the papers. She reached under the table, gripping his hand tight. Before you make your offer, she said, her voice clear in the hushed room, you should know that the Augustine's revenue is up 28% since I implemented the new guest services protocols. The same protocols I'm rolling out across all Blackwood hotel properties. Kessler's smile faltered. Ms. Bennett, this is a closed board meeting. Your presence here is merely a courtesy. My presence here, she cut in, is as director of guest services for the entire hotel group, and as someone who understands something you've forgotten, success isn't just about stock prices. She pulled out her own folder, distributing documents with quiet confidence. These are testimonials from guests, employees, and community leaders, real people affected by Adrian's leadership, people who've seen firsthand how he's transformed corporate culture from profit at all costs to sustainable growth. Touching, Kessler sneered, but sentiment doesn't pay dividends. No? Nathan spoke up from behind them, his voice carrying the precision of his medical training. Tell that to the 3 hospital wings funded by Blackwood's corporate giving. Tell that to the scholarship students who can afford college because of his programs. Some dividends don't show up on quarterly reports. Adrian squeezed Olivia's hand, drawing strength from her presence. I have letters from major institutional investors, he said, producing another set of documents. They're concerned about the board's short-term focus and support my vision for sustainable growth. Together, they control 48% of voting shares. Kessler's face reddened. You're bluffing. Am I? Adrian's smile was razor-sharp. Your plan to dismantle the company piece by piece might make you rich, Richard, but it won't happen on my watch, not while I have breath in my body. This isn't just about the company anymore, Kessler snarled. Your mother's book is fiction, Olivia interrupted. And if you'd done your research properly, you'd know that Cassandra Blackwood's publisher is already facing a libel suit from 3 other people mentioned in her book. Her credibility is shot. The room erupted in murmurs. Adrian looked at her in surprise. This was news to him too. My investigative journalism professor would be proud, Nathan muttered from behind them. Amazing what you can find with a few phone calls to the right people. Kessler stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. We're not here to debate ethics or family drama. The fact remains, Adrian, your leadership has become a liability. No, Adrian rose as well, his presence commanding the room. My leadership has become a threat to your greed, your short-term thinking, your belief that companies exist solely to enrich their boards. That ends today. He pressed a button on the conference phone in the center of the table. Mr. Chen? Are you there? Here, Mr. Blackwood. The voice of his lawyer filled the room. The SEC filing is complete. Shall I proceed? Kessler's face went from red to pale. What filing? As of 9 a.m. this morning, Adrian announced. I've transferred controlling interest in Blackwood Industries to a new public benefit corporation. One with a charter that explicitly prioritizes employee welfare, community impact, and sustainable growth alongside shareholder value. The boardroom exploded in chaos. Board members shouted questions and threats. Papers flew, and Kessler looked like he might have a stroke. You can't do this, he roared. The shareholders have already approved it. Adrian's smile was triumphant. Those investor letters, they weren't just supporting my vision, they were voting their shares. The deal is done. Olivia stared at him in amazement. When did you remember all those late nights I was working on contingency plans? He squeezed her hand. This is what love looks like in corporate law, making sure no one can ever use our relationship to threaten what we're building. Nathan let out a low whistle. Remind me never to play chess with you. Mr. Blackwood? His lawyer's voice came through the speaker again. The press release is ready. Should we proceed with the announcement? Adrian looked at Olivia, a question in his eyes. This was more than a business decision. It was a declaration to the world about who they were and what they stood for. She nodded, feeling tears prick at her eyes. Together. Proceed, Mr. Chen. Adrian's voice rang with authority. And schedule a company-wide meeting for tomorrow. It's time everyone understood what we're fighting for. As the board members filed out, some shell-shocked, others already calling their lawyers, Kessler paused at the door. Your father would be ashamed, he spat. Throwing away an empire for a hotel maid. No, Adrian said quietly, pulling Olivia close. My father would be ashamed that it took me this long to understand what really matters. But I'm not my father, Richard. And this isn't an ending. It's a beginning. When the room cleared, Nathan pulled them both into a fierce hug. That was something else. That was family, Olivia said softly, looking at these two men who had become her world. That was love. Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. Speaking of family, there's something else we need to discuss. He pulled away slightly, reaching into his pocket. I was going to wait for a more romantic moment, but after watching you fight for me in there, Olivia's heart stopped as he dropped to one knee. Olivia Bennett, he said, his voice rough with emotion. You walked into my life by falling asleep in my suite, and you've been waking me up ever since, showing me what matters, what's worth fighting for. Will you? Yes, she breathed, not letting him finish. Yes, yes, yes. The ring was simple and elegant, not the ostentatious display she might have expected from a billionaire, but something that spoke of understanding who she really was. Nathan cleared his throat, wiping suspiciously at his eyes. Mom and Dad would have loved him live. I know, she whispered, letting Adrian slip the ring onto her finger. They'd have loved how he loves me. Outside the boardroom windows, New York stretched out before them, not just a city of power and money anymore, but a place where love could transform empires and family could be built from the heart's finest materials. The battle was won, but the war for their vision was just beginning, and now, finally, they were ready to fight it together. Cassandra Blackwood was exactly as beautiful as her photos suggested, with the same steel-gray eyes as her son, and an elegance that made the Augustine's presidential suite seem somehow inadequate. She sat perched on the edge of the sofa, her Chanel suit impeccable, watching Olivia with an expression that mixed curiosity and calculation. So, she said, her British accent even crisper than Adrian's, you're the woman who brought down my son's empire. Actually, Olivia kept her voice steady, I'm the woman who helped him build a better one. A smile flickered across Cassandra's perfect lips. They told me you had spirit. I suppose you'd need it to survive in Adrian's world. Why are you here? Olivia didn't bother with pleasantries. The surprise visit from her future mother-in-law, 2 weeks before the wedding, Couldn't be a coincidence. Can't a mother want to attend her only son's wedding? A mother, yes. A woman who abandoned her 8-year-old child and then wrote a tell-all book destroying his reputation? That's a different question. Cassandra's composure cracked slightly. You don't understand what it was like being married to Robert Blackwood. The control, the expectations, the suffocation of being a corporate wife. No, Olivia cut in. I don't understand. I don't understand how any mother could walk away from her child. And I definitely don't understand profiting from his pain. 28 years later. I had my reasons, I'm sure you did. But those reasons stopped mattering the moment you decided to cash in on Adrian's success with your lies. Cassandra stood abruptly, pacing the suite with nervous energy. Not all of them were lies. The Blackwood men, they consume everything, in their path. Robert's ambition destroyed our family. And Adrian, he's so much like his father. You don't know him? Olivia's voice was steel. You don't know how he fought his own board to protect employees' jobs. How he reads to kids at the children's hospital every month. How he helped my brother navigate med school applications because he saw how much Nathan missed having a father figure. Pretty stories, Cassandra dismissed. But the truth is in the blood. The need for control, for power. The truth? Olivia stood, anger finally breaking through her calm. The truth is that Adrian transforms everything he touches not by controlling it but by caring about it. He turned a soulless corporation into a force for good. He made a luxury hotel chain focus on employee welfare and community impact. He took a broken family, my brother and me, and showed us what unconditional love looks like. Love? Cassandra scoffed. Blackwood men don't know how to love. They only know how to possess. Then you never really knew your son? Olivia moved to the window, looking out at the city Adrian had taught her to see differently. Because he loves with everything he has. He loves so completely it terrifies him sometimes, but he does it anyway because that's who he is. Not who you and his father made him, but who he chose to become. The door opened, and Adrian stepped in, freezing at the sight of his mother. His face went blank, a mask Olivia hadn't seen, in months sliding into place. Mother. His voice was arctic. What an unwelcome surprise. Adrian. Cassandra stepped toward him, but he moved away, circling to stand beside Olivia. I came to talk about the wedding, about making things right. Making things right? A harsh laugh escaped him. Was that before or after your book tour? The book? It wasn't meant to hurt you. It was about my journey, my healing. Your healing? The words exploded from him. What about my healing? What about the 8-year-old boy who woke up one morning to find his mother gone? Who spent years thinking it was his fault, that if he'd been better, smarter, more worthy, you might have stayed? Olivia took his hand, feeling the tremors running through him. He gripped back like she was a lifeline. I was suffocating, Cassandra whispered. Your father? My father was far from perfect, Adrian cut in. But he stayed. He might have been cold and demanding, but he never abandoned me. And now you want to come back? Now that I'm successful, engaged, finally building something real? I want to be part of your life again. Why? Adrian's voice cracked. Because it's good publicity? Because your book sales might spike if you attend the society wedding of the year? Cassandra flinched. That's not fair. Fair? Olivia felt Adrian's grip tighten. Fair would have been having a mother at my graduations. Fair would have been someone to talk to when I was terrified of becoming my father. Fair would have been knowing that someone loved me for me, not for what I could achieve. I did love you, Cassandra protested. I do love you. No. Adrian's voice was suddenly calm, almost gentle. You love the idea of me. The successful son, the reformed corporate raider, the perfect final chapter for your redemption story. But you don't know me at all. He turned to Olivia, his expression softening. This woman knows me. She saw past every wall I built, every defense mechanism, every bit of Blackwood armor. She loves me not in spite of my flaws, but because they're part of who I am. That's real love, Mother. That's family. Tears spilled down Cassandra's perfect cheeks. Please, Adrian, give me a chance. I did. He reached into his suit jacket, pulling out a folded paper. 20 years ago, when I found you in London, I was 16, trying to understand why my mother left. You said you weren't ready, that you needed more time. So I gave you time, and you used it to write a book destroying me. Olivia's heart cracked. He'd never told her about finding his mother in London. The wedding is in 2 weeks, Adrian continued. You're not invited, not because I hate you, but because I finally love myself enough to set boundaries, to protect what matters. And what matters? Cassandra's voice was barely a whisper. Adrian pulled Olivia closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. This, us, the family we're building, the good we're trying to do in the world, everything you couldn't understand in your book. Something shifted in Cassandra's expression. Recognition, perhaps, or regret. She picked up her designer handbag with trembling hands. You really love her, she said softly. More than empire or legacy or anything else you and Father taught me to value. Adrian's voice was firm. She's my true north, Mother. My best decision. My miracle. Cassandra moved to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything. I know. Adrian's voice was gentle but final. Goodbye, Mother. When the door closed behind her, Adrian seemed to collapse, in on himself. Olivia caught him, holding him as years of pain and anger and loss poured out in silent tears. I've got you, she whispered into his hair. I've got you, my love. They stood like that for a long time, the city lights painting patterns on the floor around them. Finally, Adrian pulled back just enough to look at her. Marry me, he said roughly. Olivia smiled through her own tears. Pretty sure I already said yes to that. No, I mean, he took her face in his hands. Marry me now, tonight, just us and Nathan and a judge. No society circus, no press, no ghosts from the past. Just love. What about the big wedding? The press can write whatever they want. His thumbs brushed away her tears. I don't want to wait 2 more weeks. I don't want to share our moment with 500 strangers. I just want you, in whatever dress you're wearing, right now, promising to build a better world with me. Olivia looked up at this man who had crashed into her life and rearranged all her careful plans, who had shown her that love wasn't weakness but the greatest strength of all. Yes, she breathed. Yes to tonight. Yes to everything. Yes to forever. Adrian's kiss tasted of tears and joy and promise. Outside, New York glittered like a kingdom of possibilities. But in that moment, their true empire was nothing more than this. 2 hearts beating in perfect sync, ready to write their own story. The judge's chambers in New York City Hall had never seen a wedding quite like this. Olivia stood in her work dress, the same one she'd worn during her rounds at the Augustine that morning, while Adrian remained in his business suit, their fingers intertwined as Judge Martinez smiled at their unconventional ceremony. Nathan stood as their witness, his eyes suspiciously bright as he held his phone to livestream the moment to Regina and the hotel staff who had become family. No designer gown, no society photographers, no elaborate flowers, just pure, unvarnished love illuminating the simple room. Marriage, Judge Martinez began, her voice warm with decades of wisdom, is not just a union of 2 people, but a fusion of 2 stories. Today we witness not just vows, but the beginning of a new chapter. Olivia looked up at Adrian, seeing in his eyes the same wonder she'd glimpsed that first night when he found her sleeping in his suite. He'd changed since then. They both had, but that wonder remained constant. The rings? The judge prompted. Nathan stepped forward, producing 2 simple platinum bands. They'd stopped at a jeweler on their way to City Hall, choosing rings that spoke of permanence rather than flash. Adrian, Judge Martinez nodded. Your vows. He took the smaller ring, his hand steady as he held Olivia's left hand. I, Adrian Blackwood, spent my entire life building walls and empires, thinking power meant never needing anyone. Then you fell asleep in my suite and woke something in me I thought had died long ago, the ability to trust, to hope, to love without fear. His voice roughened with emotion. I vow to love you not as a possession or a prize, but as my equal, my partner, my miracle. I vow to build not just hotels or companies, but a life worthy of the faith you've placed in me. I vow to be the man you see when you look at me, not the CEO or the billionaire, but simply yours. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Olivia, the judge prompted gently. Her hands trembled as she took the second ring. I, Olivia Bennett, grew up believing that love meant sacrifice, giving up pieces of yourself to protect others. You taught me that real love multiplies instead of divides, that it makes you more yourself, not less. She slid the ring onto his finger, feeling the weight of the moment. I vow to stand beside you in all battles, whether they're in boardrooms or our hearts. I vow to remind you every day that you are worthy of love, that your heart is your greatest strength. I vow to build our empire of kindness together, starting with this moment, this promise, this love. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, Judge Martinez's voice carried both authority and joy. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may. Adrian was already kissing Olivia, pouring years of loneliness and months of healing into a single, perfect moment. Nathan's whoop of joy echoed off the chamber walls, joined by cheers from the phone where the hotel staff watched. Mrs. Blackwood, Adrian murmured against her lips. Ms. Bennett Blackwood, she corrected with a smile. I'm keeping both names, remember? How could I forget? His eyes danced with happiness. You never let me forget anything important. Nathan pulled them both into a fierce hug. Mom and Dad would be so proud, Liv. Of both of you. The words hit Olivia hard, making her clutch both men tighter. This was family. Not perfect, not traditional, but real and strong and chosen. Outside City Hall, the late afternoon sun painted Manhattan in shades of gold. A small crowd of reporters had somehow gotten wind of their plans, cameras flashing, as they emerged. Mr. Blackwood, was this a rushed wedding because of the company crisis? Ms. Bennett, did you sign a prenup? What about the society wedding that was planned? Adrian raised their joined hands, wedding rings catching the light. The only statement we're making today is about love. Real love. That transforms instead of consumes. That builds instead of destroys. The kind of love worth more than any empire. Olivia squeezed his hand. And about family, she added. The kind you choose, that chooses you back every day. They pushed through the press to where Russell waited with the car, but instead of the usual Bentley, he stood beside a yellow taxi. Your chariot awaits, he said with a grin. Adrian laughed, full and free and nothing like the controlled CEO who had first found Olivia sleeping in his suite. Perfect. Where to? The taxi driver asked as they piled in, Nathan included. Olivia and Adrian exchanged looks. The Augustine, they said in unison. Because where else would they celebrate but the place where their story began? The hotel staff had been preparing since Nathan's text announcing their plans. Regina had closed the rooftop bar for a private celebration, just family, the kind made by love rather than blood. As they drove through the city streets, Olivia rested her head on Adrian's shoulder, their rings glinting together. Happy, he murmured into her hair. Beyond words. She looked up at him. Are you ready for what comes next? The press will be brutal tomorrow. Let them. His voice held nothing but certainty. We've faced down corporate raiders, family demons, and social prejudices. We can handle a few headlines. Together, Nathan added from the front seat, turning to grin at them. The taxi rounded the corner, and the Augustine came into view. The entire staff had gathered outside, creating an honor guard leading to the entrance. Regina stood at the front, beaming with pride. Look, Adrian said softly, pointing up. On the building's facade, someone had arranged the lights in guest rooms to spell out "Love Wins" across 20 stories. Olivia's breath caught. How did they? I might have helped coordinate while you were getting the rings, Nathan admitted. The guests were surprisingly enthusiastic about participating in a love story. As they stepped out of the taxi, the staff erupted in cheers. These weren't just employees celebrating their boss's wedding. They were families celebrating love's victory over cynicism, hope's triumph over fear. Adrian pulled Olivia close as they walked through the corridor of celebration, rose petals falling like blessings. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For falling asleep in my suite, for seeing past my walls, for teaching me that real power isn't about control, it's about having the courage to let love transform you. Olivia kissed him right there in the hotel entrance, not caring about the cameras or crowds or tomorrow's headlines, because some things were bigger than social expectations or corporate politics or family legacies. Some things, like love, could transform empires into families and lonely hearts into homes. As they rode the elevator to the rooftop celebration, Olivia looked at their reflection in the mirrored walls. She in her simple dress, Adrian in his business suit, Nathan grinning beside them. Not a traditional family portrait, perhaps, but perfect in its own way. Ready? Adrian asked as the elevator reached the top floor. Olivia smiled, thinking of all the horizons yet to explore, all the love yet to share, all the good yet to... "Joint ready," she said, squeezing his hand. "For everything." The doors opened to their future, bright with possibility and rich with love's finest promise, that sometimes the greatest empires are built not of steel and glass, but of hearts brave enough to choose each other every single day. Have you ever had a moment where exhaustion or what seemed like bad luck actually led you to something life-changing? Like Olivia falling asleep in Adrian's suite, sometimes our most vulnerable moments can become our greatest blessings. Share your story of when a mistake turned into a miracle. Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below, letting us know what you thought. Feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.